Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk with you guys a little bit about this whole situation with the ultra plus size model Tess Holliday being put on the cover of Cosmo, my take on it. And, I'm going to be polite and respectful in this. I'm not going to be insulting to anyone. I'm not going to make fun of anyone or anything like that, because I think this is really a serious topic. And I really and truly don't think that morbid obesity to that extent is funny. I don't think it's something that anyone should be mocked for. It's something that we need to be talking about on a very serious level as a society, and our concern for the message we're sending to children, and the concern that we're sending for ourselves. Because I want to talk a little bit about self-respect and self-love here. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because, all right, Tess Holliday, she is 300 pounds at 5'5". That's her reported stats, and that's believable. And when you start thinking about lean mass and everything else, that means that her body fat percentage is probably exceeding 60%. Right? It's probably exceeding 60%. That more than half of her body is made out of fat at this point. Out of all her, compared to her skin, bone, muscle, organs, everything else. And she is at a body weight for her height right now to where if she lost 100 pounds of weight, most doctors would still say that she is at high risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, things like that. We're talking about a health issue here. This is nothing to do with self-respect, life choices, any of that. This is a extreme health issue. And part of our problem is that a lot of people want this to be promoted so that we can tell heavier young girls and other people that it's okay, but what they need to be told is that it's not okay. And it has nothing to do with teaching them self-respect, because they're like, well, they need to learn to love themselves. Well, my experience dealing with the very morbidly obese, and some of myself who has been morbidly obese before, in fact, during a stage of my depression, I gained 100 pounds of body fat. I can tell you right now that gaining 100 pounds of body fat is not something that people who already respect and love themselves do. All right? There's usually something going on 99% of the time. There could be exceptions. There's something going on in their lives or their self-image that causes them to abuse themselves that way, because it is a form of self-abuse. It really is. It's extremely harmful. It's harmful, just like someone who goes on addictive, dangerous drug like heroin or something else. Those are things that people do because there's some void in their life that causes them to even try it, right? They wouldn't try it if you really and truly loved yourself, or you were in a good place. You wouldn't go try heroin for the first time. Exactly, right? I think we all agree there. People who are well adjusted and balanced and everything's perfect in their life and they're truly happy with who they are don't pick that up and decide to try it one day. So there's other issues going on here, and that's something that I think we need to really think about, because I think this is sending a bad message, because it's showing it as being that it can be glamorous, it can be beautiful, and that is not how we solve this obesity crisis we have in this country. That's not how we solve it. We don't need to be endorsing it. We need to be teaching. Instead, we need to be teaching better health, better diet, exercise, and everything else to our children in schools as a society. We need to be teaching people that, because that is part of respecting yourself. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I got really sick, and I know people on the internet want to try to make up stories and claim, oh, he wasn't really sick, he's lying. I'm sorry, I'm going to ban anyone who says any silly crap like that. Right? I'm going to ban anyone who says some silly crap like that, because that's bullshit, and you guys know it. You know it. I had multiple experts diagnose me with Meniere's disease. My Meniere's got really, really bad. I lost my corporate job because I got too sick to work. I was actually making really decent money, had a good corporate job at the time, and I got really sick. My Meniere's knocked me out of being able to work. My marriage, it was already starting to fall apart, and I'm not going to get into all that with my personal life. I had reached a point in my life where I felt like my life had fallen apart, and I had still been working out 5 days a week at that point. I was weighing something like 215. I was still benching close to 400. I was squatting over 500 pounds somehow while managing to work, a 60-hour-a-week job. I was just hitting the gym on the way home from work. I got sick. My doctors told me, stop training. stop exercising. We got to figure out what's wrong with you. And then it turned out that my Meniere's is what I ended up having, that I'd had it for years. It went bilateral. I got really sick. I went and lived with a really good one of my best friends. Said, "Hey man, you just come stay with me. It's going to be okay." And he gave me a place to stay. Because we both owed each other a lot of favors over the years. I had a place to stay at least while I was trying to figure all this out. But yeah, I slipped into extreme depression. I lost my job. My marriage had fallen apart. I was sick. I felt physically terrible all the time. And in my depression, I fell back on something that's been a historic problem for me. I'm a childhood abuse survivor. And for me, I was taught really bad eating habits as a coping mechanism for that abuse, right? That's where my obesity stems from. And that's the kind of the thing of being self-actualized, people, of stepping back. If you have an obesity problem, saying, what's causing this? Because this isn't normal. It's not normal. It's not healthy. It's not psychologically normal. I've had to look back and point out that for me, I was rewarded for my silence of the abuse. Of you don't say, here, let's go get some ice cream. It's going to be okay. Right? I was given large amounts of junk food to take my mind off the stress of the abuse. Don't worry about it. It didn't happen. Don't talk about it here. You can keep quiet about it. You can have as much ice cream as you want. Here, the ice cream will make you feel better, right? That started for me at a very young age as a child. Throughout my life, because of that, used food as a way to deal with stress and negative emotion or things that had upset me. That food could comfort and make everything okay, right? I'd been taught that as a child. All right. You guys see where I'm going with this? So accordingly, that has been historically my cycle of response to extreme stress, to extreme life situations, is just eat some comfort foods. Eat a bunch of comfort foods and it'll make it all better. Everything will be okay. All right, that's how you develop an extremely self-destructive habit. And while I was sick and depressed, I gained almost 100 pounds while losing a lot of muscle. I gained 100 pounds of body fat, basically, while sick and depressed. And at a certain point, I had to tell myself that I need to pull myself out of this, that my life means something, that for me, I felt worthless as a human being. And because I felt worthless as a human being, and I felt I had no value as a person, I went back to my coping mechanism of overeating. And besides, because again, if you're going to overeat to the point of where you're destroying your health, you probably don't feel very good as a person anyways. And at a certain point, that's how you have to break that cycle, is to step back and say, okay, this is bad for me. But part of it, people say, oh, you need to always feel better about yourself first. And I don't think that's the case. I think the idea of making positive changes in your life and saying, hey, I need to start eating better right now. I need to start exercising right now. Because when you take physical steps towards feeling better about yourself as a person, when you start physically doing things that you know are going to improve you on some level physically, you're going to try to take better care of your health, going to take better care of yourself mentally, spiritually, mentally, whatever it happens to be. When you do physical things that you know will improve you as a person, you imprint the idea into your own mind that you are a good person and that you do deserve better and that you can be better and that you really and truly want that for yourself. Because that's the thing. Deep down, people who eat to the point of extreme obesity don't believe that they deserve better. They don't believe that they deserve better. And that's how you get to the sort of weights that people like Tess are at. That is actually a sign of horrific self-esteem at some level. There's something broken in people, and it's a defense mechanism, or it's their way of subconsciously just doing what, again, some sort of coping mechanism, or they know deep down they don't feel they're a good person, or they wouldn't abuse themselves that way, because it's a form of self-abuse, and everybody knows that. And that's the concern, is that we're glorifying it. And it's being glorified when it's put on a mainstream fashion magazine and it's telling little girls that it's okay, that this is an acceptable way to treat yourself. That this is an acceptable coping mechanism for the things that hurt inside. is to do this to yourself. But see, it's glamorous. You could do all this, and you could still be on the cover of Cosmo, and people could still call you beautiful. I don't think that's the right message at all. I think that's a very dangerous message we're sending when we live in a society where we have an obesity epidemic, where we have access to limitless food, we have access to limitless junk food. I think that's a terrible message to send. It's a terrible message. And in my opinion, I think you are risking condemning a whole lot of younger girls who see this. I think you're risking condemning them to short lives, to heart disease, to cancer, to diabetes, to strokes. And I don't think it's a good thing. I think this is not a good thing. I don't think it's good at all. And I think it is sending an absolute wrong message. I mean, we can send that message of self-love, but self-love involves treating yourself good. You know, just like me, guys, what am I doing right now? As a strength athlete, my body weight earlier this year drifted up over 250. Now I've been cutting since then. I've been cutting for months. I'm sitting down at 225. I said I'm going to get to 210 by the end of the year. You know why? Because I'm someone that people follow. I have over 100,000 followers. I have 64 million views on this channel. Right? This is a strength and conditioning channel. A lot of people who follow my example. Me bulking up to that sort of body fat and body weight, I don't think I'm setting a good example for people. I haven't been by doing that. And so that's the way I've been pushing in the other direction, just slowly trimming back down, because it is about setting a good example for impressionable young people. And all of us who are public figures and have our faces up there for people to see, I think we do have an obligation to do that. I think we do have an obligation to do that. And we have an obligation to tell people who are struggling with their body weight due to their issues that, you know what? You are a good person and you don't deserve to do this to yourself. Treat yourself better than that. If you start treating yourself better and you start actively working on improving yourself, you'll start feeling better about yourself. You really will. I promise you. I promise you. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.